It is a dark night in the year 1790, and a lone man rides home in a dark valley known as Sleepy Hollow. Upon passing a lightning-struck tulip tree, this man sees a rider, but upon closer inspection, realizes that the rider has no head, and a jack-o'-lantern sits in his lap. The Headless Horseman chases this rider through the night, and by morning, the rider, a man named Ichabod Crane, is never seen again. So initially this was planned to be a Halloween video, but I'm pretty lazy and I didn't do it on Halloween. So I'm gonna make it a December video instead. So here's your spooky December video, I guess. Author Washington Irving was born in New York City in the year 1783. In 1802, Irving published a series of observational letters to the Morning Chronicle, his first literary work. The Legend of Sleepy Hollow was published by Irving in 1820 as one of a collection of 34 short stories and essays called The Sketchbook of Geoffrey Crayon, Gent. The story is set in the countryside around an old Dutch settlement known as Tarrytown, in a region known as Sleepy Hollow, which is and was well known for ghosts and hauntings. There are two opposing stories for why the town is so haunted, with one being that the town is bewitched, and another that a Native American shaman cursed the valley. However, the most infamous ghost is the Headless Horseman, the ghost of a Hessian soldier killed during the American Revolution by having his head cut off. The story begins in 1790 and follows a young, skinny, and superstitious schoolmaster from Connecticut by the name of Ichabod Crane. Crane came to Sleepy Hollow to work at a local school. Crane stayed at several residences while he was in Sleepy Hollow and was a good house guest, helping out the families he stayed with. Crane was superstitious and stayed in Sleepy Hollow in part to hear the legends and ghost stories told by the old Dutch women, who talked of a horseman who rode the region at night with no head, which many called the galloping Hessian of the Hollow. Throughout the story, Crane vies for the love of a woman named Katrina Van Tassel, daughter of wealthy Dutch farmer Baltus Van Tassel. However, Crane has a rival named Abraham or Bram van Brunt. The tension between the two comes to a head when Crane attends a harvest party at the Van Tassel home, intent on proposing to Katrina. However, he fails and is rejected by Katrina. Heavy-hearted, Crane rode back to the farm he was staying at in Sleepy Hollow. After passing a lightning-struck tulip tree, supposedly haunted by British spy Major John Andre, Ichabod spotted a large figure in a cloak atop a horse. Crane then realized the figure's head was resting in its saddle, and he decided to ride away from the specter at full speed. Crane raced for the bridge the ghost was said to disappear in fire and brimstone at, and despite making it across the bridge ahead of the horseman, decided to look back to see the horseman rearing up on his horse and hurling his head at Ichabod. Despite attempting to dodge it, Crane was struck by the head and knocked off of his horse. The next morning, Crane's horse, Gunpowder, was found eating grass, but Ichabod Crane had mysteriously disappeared, leaving Katrina to marry Bram. The only evidence left behind was a beat-up saddle, Crane's hat, and a smashed pumpkin, presumably the quote, head thrown at Ichabod. While the story leaves the identity of the horseman and what happened to Ichabod up to interpretation, it is heavily implied Bram was the horseman that chased Crane, either to scare him out of town or to kill him, which is unlikely, as Bram is described as having, quote, more mischief than ill will. Irving concludes the story by stating that the old Dutch women tell tales of how Crane was spirited away to some supernatural realm and talk of his melancholy spirit being seen throughout Sleepy Hollow. Irving wrote the legend of Sleepy Hollow while he was in Europe, and the tale is heavily inspired by the Irish legend of the Dullahan, a headless rider on a black horse, which brings death in its wake, alongside inspiration from other tales like the Scandinavian Wild Hunt and poems like Scotsman Robert Burns's 1790 poem Tam O'Shanter, about a man riding home at night, seeing witches and the devil. Whatever the origins of the Sleepy Hollow legend, it's earned its place in the annals of American folklore. But maybe there is something in that town after all. Thanks for watching.